Devil's on the loose and he's dancing with the mummy.
Deep from the bowels of the Macabre Theater Laboratory, we bring you Macabre Cast. There is nothing wrong with your streaming service. You are exactly where you should be, where the slush puppy machine is always on and cold. Your favorite horror mag is on the rack, discreetly placed between Women's Wear Daily and Cosmopolitan. I'm your host, Doc Mark, along with my mold-riddled counterpart, Karis, the Little Mummy, here to bring you the latest episode of Macabre Cast, where we'll be dropping R's where they belong and adding them where they don't. Yeah! Newbies welcome, regulars welcome back, and worshippers, get out of here. This is a safe space for those who remember walking to the corner store for some gum, candy, trading cards, and your favorite monster mag or comic was the best day of the week. If you haven't already, like, share, follow, and subscribe to my show on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or when I'm not violating infantile community standard rules, TikTok. Tell your friends to do the same, even that guy who agrees to accept your offer for a free coffee and then gives you the flavor he'd like and it reads like the code launch for a nuclear missile. Yeah, that guy. Oh. If you'd like to interact with fellow monster kids, or maybe even the Drac Pack Elite, follow the Facebook page Macabre Theater. It's there where you can send me a voice message through Messenger. Or, if you'd prefer, send me an email to macabretheater666@gmail.com. Macabrecast episode 166 and all of its gory glory begins now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Adoro il cast macabre.
Hello, Karis.
Hello, Doc.
Violence, Karis. When a horror film's focus seems to be about violence. Most notably to me would be Natural Born Killers.
Is that a horror movie, though?
It focuses on real-world horror, Karis.
Real-world horror?
Yes, the media and news outlets.
Speaking of, what has become of that segment that you used to do called Real-World Horror? Is that kaput?
No, I'm writing an opening jingle for the segment because YouTube has an issue with the one I use.
Everyone has an issue with something.
That they do, Karis. That they do. But rest assured, Real World Horror, the segment, will be back. Unless the Monster Kids feel differently. Should Real World Horror be kaput? Let me know. If you'd rather, you can email me at macabretheater666@gmail.com and let me know there.
Did I ever tell you about my friend Kevin? He's a sailor.
No, Karis, I don't recall you ever telling me about Kevin the sailor.
Yeah, he was a sailor, but he couldn't recite the alphabet.
Really? Kevin was unable to recite the alphabet?
Yeah, he'd always get lost at sea.
And on that note, it's time for horror news. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is getting a hand-drawn animated re-imaging. Why? Anyone? Bueller? District 9 director Neil Blomkamp plans to make an AI feature film after releasing a 13-minute test. And the Monster Kids had an issue with my idea to make a sequel to the old Universal Monster films using CGI. A CGI Cheney, Karloff, Lugosi. I'll bet my idea looks pretty good now, wouldn't you say? Oh. A contemporary reimaging of the original 1922 serial story Herbert West Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft is in production. Aliens, the James Cameron mega sequel, celebrates its 40th anniversary with a deluxe collector's book featuring insights from James Cameron and the cast. Kaylee Hoddle, the actress from Godzilla vs. Kong, has passed away at 18 years young. And that's it for horror news. And Draven agrees. Draven the blood-vomiting bat. Children of the night, what messes they make. So before we get into the topic today on episode 166, I'd like to say leave it to Chicago Tina to call me out. When I recommend films, she generally goes and sees them. We don't always see eye to eye, but many times we do. What do I mean by call me out? Well, simply put, when she recommends something, it is believed that I don't put much stake into her recommendations. This, however, is not true. There just happens to be a number of films that there's an invisible brick wall that goes up, preventing my brain from wanting to see. Joker, for instance. At the time Chicago Tina recommended Joker, as much as a comic book fan as I am, I was burnt out because every film out there was a comic book movie. Then to hear it was basically a reboot of one of my personal favorites, Taxi Driver, I was even more turned off. Making that invisible brick wall even higher. So please, Chicago Tina, take no offense. It's not you. It's coincidence. And I'm a stubborn prick. So when my movie pick rolled around, Laura Hara suggested, why don't I see the movie Chicago Tina has been pushing me to see forever? You guessed it, Shutter Island. Now, Chicago Tina knows Scorsese is one of my favorite directors. His cinematography is next to none. So why would I be so hesitant to watch Shutter Island? I have no legitimate reason. For example, I hate the name. I know, lame, right? This is why I'm not going to go into why I move away from films of them that I've never seen. So let's move on, shall we? The acting, as always, was top-notch. And that's because Scorsese packs his films with A-list players. Shutter Island is home to Boston's Institution for the Criminally Insane. It's 1954, and 2 U.S. Marshals have arrived when a female patient there has up and disappeared without a trace. During their investigation, a hurricane hits the island, cutting them off from the mainland and allowing other inmates to escape. A fantastically layered story that really brings to focus just how terrible mental illness is. I'm not going to say more about the film, but I am so glad that Chicago Tina pushed me to see it. Oliver Stone spent most of his directorial years under the scrutiny of news media for his controversial takes on films he made, like JFK. So in almost a retaliation move, he made a film about the news media's toxic relationship with American violence. It was called Natural Born Killers, a tour de force, violence-glorified road movie that was spun in a surreal, satirialistic way. A microscope on how serial killers were being portrayed as pop culture celebrities. Rapid MTV-style editing and animation coupled with shifting film stocks exaggerated the overstimulated and desensitized way of television. Robert Downey Jr. brilliantly portrays Wayne Gale, an unethical, morally bankrupt, sensationalized tabloid reporter who chases every waking story on Mickey and Mallory, modern-day Bonnie and Clyde serial killers. The part of Mickey was the first role I had seen Woody Harrelson play outside of his dim-witted character on the comedy show Cheers, and he was fantastically unsettling. A strange segment in the film that portrays a typical sitcom and has Rodney Dangerfield in the lead shows an American abusive household with a laugh track in the background, showing how American television conditions audiences to view trauma, pain, and sexual abuse as entertainment. The majority audience viewed natural-born killers as nothing more than promoting violence. Sadly, those people missed the point completely.
Way cool. It's Chicago Tina.
Well. Speak of the devil.
Hey, Dark Mark and Karis, the little mummy. So, I just finished watching your episode 165, and I thought I'd call in. And I got a bunch of stuff to talk about, so let's go. First of all, it was a great show last week. And I just wanted to say that I watched a bunch of unmemorable films the past 2 weeks, and a few were memorable, but, well, Evil Dead Rise was okay, and I liked it. I didn't love it, but the Evil Dead franchise holds a special place in my heart. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but when I was pregnant with my daughter Violet, I played through the video game, I think it was called Boomstick for Xbox, and I played through that the whole game till she was born. So I always look back with that for fond memories, and I love the movies, the first three. But this movie had the same vibe as the first three. It was, I mean, it didn't have the campy comedy. I get that, but it was still had that really chaotic, demonic quality about it that I liked. So I'd have to say that I did like that movie, and I don't know if I'd recommend it. It was okay, but I am definitely going to see Evil Dead Burn in theaters if I can catch it before it goes out. So I'll let you know what I think of that. But hey, that would be a good subject for an upcoming show. Maybe not a whole show, but a subject maybe of what other people play, like horror video games. I have a personal favorite video game of all time, but it has to be in the arcade because I bought it for the Xbox, and I didn't play it that much, but I still go back to Salisbury Beach because they still have one. Is House of the Dead. You know, that's the one where you have the gun and you shoot zombies. I love that game. And if I ever strike it rich, I'm going to buy that arcade game. Okay. So anyway, I saw the movie Do Not Enter, and because it's trending on HBO, and yeah, I think the writers of that movie kind of forgot what they were writing about halfway through. Not even halfway through. After the first maybe half hour. They kind of lost the original premise of the film, I think, and I really didn't think anything of that one. So I wouldn't recommend that one to anybody. I saw the movie Wrong Turn. That's an older one. That one I can't really remember anything about, not much anyway. And I saw, In the Mouth of Madness. There's a lot of movies that are on Tubi, I guess, right now, because Sam Neill just died. And In the Mouth of Madness, I've always wanted to see that. Hey, this might go on into your what movies weren't what you expected category there. I kind of thought that was going to be a science fiction movie, but it wasn't really. It sort of was, but I think that because it's so old that I didn't like it as much as I could have. I think if they remade that, it might be a better movie. But if you want to see a good Sam Neill horror film, the movie Dead Calm is better. Also, I watched a movie called The Uninvited from 1944, which was nice. It was a nice, wholesome, old-timey black and white film, and that was pretty good. Um, and that's about it, I guess, for this week. Because the other movie, you mentioned Funny Games. The only thing I remembered about that movie was the spoiler that you revealed. I don't remember a single thing about that movie because I thought it was so boring. Um, and that's about it. So I hope to talk to you soon, and I really hope you watch Shutter Island. Talk to you later. Bye.
Well, in your face, because he did. He just had to be badgered by about 6 people to do it, but he did it.
House of the Dead was a great video game for PlayStation. I had it for PlayStation where you could shoot the zombies with a gun, and I love that game, if it's the same game that you're talking about. And, In the Mouth of Madness, I never liked In the Mouth of Madness. It's supposedly an H.P. Lovecraft inspired story, but yeah, I didn't like it. And Funny Games, I remember, I talked about that last week on episode 165. And I remember a while back you had asked me about it because you had all these people telling you, oh, don't see this film. It's disturbing. It's this and that. And it was a home invasion film. It had certain elements, but I told you to see it. I said it really wasn't that big of a deal, but there would be one twist in it, which I spoiled last week, but warned everyone, and I won't do again this week. Always so great to hear from you, Chicago Tina, and we hope to hear from you again soon.
You are listening to Dark Mark's Macabre Cast, episode 166, Horror that Focuses on Violence.
Horrible Mention. Today's horrible mention is 2012's The ABCs of Death. The ABCs of Death is a 26-film anthology, each film lasting no more than 4 minutes, on the theme of death, and each is directed by a different director. Although this sounds fascinating, trust me when I say it sounds far better than it is. Each title obviously starting with the next letter in the alphabet. A is for apocalypse, and so on. Again, sounds better than it is. And there is only so much you can do with 4 minutes. And so when we arrive on titles like Fart, well, you can just imagine. I found most of this film distasteful and just plain lousy, even though some of these directors are well known. Ty West. Poor writing, bad segments outweighing good by a large margin doesn't help. Only strong-stomached people should venture into this ambitious idea done inadequately. Horrible Mention.
Is this something you could share with the rest of us, Amazing Larry?
Greetings, Doc, Mark, and Karis. Karis. Scary Larry here, still shuddering at the thought of Karis Unwrapped. So, Dark, your topic of horror violence. I was a bit put off when in the 2000s people were classifying certain horror as just torture porn, kind of brushing it aside. Like the Hostel series was labeled, and it had me thinking, how is this any different than some of the horror we watched in the 70s? I immediately thought of I Spit on Your Grave, as well as Last House on the Left. I think what can rub people the wrong way is that you watch the Hostel series, I Spit on Your Grave, among others, and in your head you know 2 things. It has happened. And 2, this could really realistically be happening again today. Although graphically violent horror isn't my go-to genre, it has its place in the horror realm, as I'm a big fan of the Terrifier series, and that is very violent horror. To me, it's real-world horror because humans can be the most evil monsters that roam the earth. Nothing new this week, although I watched a YouTube segment suggesting that George A. Romero's Day of the Dead was a far better movie than we remember, and it deserves a rewatch. Okay, I watched it again, and no, it wasn't. I still rank it last among Romero's zombie flicks, albeit some scenes that were a phenomenal display of Tom Savini's talents. My favorite, hands down, is still Dawn of the Dead. That's all this week.
Just so you know, Scary Larry, your neighbor told me that every week you call in in the nude. So, you're not fooling anyone. Well, especially not your neighbor.
I'm glad you brought up Eli Roth's Hostel films, Larry. Because I love those movies. And yes, they do focus and center on violence. I actually prefer Hostel 2 over the original. For the simple fact, the original, to me, is very frightening, because any situation where you go into another country and you get lured into things by temptation, and then, as I talked about a week or so ago, my topic of getting into a situation, and by the time you realize it's a bad situation, you can't get out of it. That's a great example for the original film. But what I loved about Hostel 2 is it got a little more involved and flipped the script by showing you the type of people who were paying the big bucks to go to these hostels and be able to murder someone. The people that join this club, they pay lots of money so they can go in and kill. And I thought that was a really nice touch to flip it around to the other side of the spectrum. And I actually thought it was a better film. And I'm going to say, I love Day of the Dead. It's the best effects of the original trilogy. I do love the story. I like it that it's so far down the trough of what's going on. Now you're seeing from the military side of it, or what they're trying to do in the scientific side of it. Do I like it better than Dawn of the Dead? No. Dawn holds a very special place in my heart. It will always be my favorite. That's the movie that I had already seen Night of the Living Dead, but was too young to see Dawn in the theaters, and would see the newspaper ads and ogle them. I remember buying the soundtrack before I ever even saw the film. And I finally saw it, as you know, when VHS became so popular, and the video player eventually ended up in every household, and we were all renting these movies. It's still one of my favorites. It was everything I hoped it would be. And maybe not superior effects-wise to Day of the Dead. I myself, still my favorite. Always great hearing from you, Scary Larry, and we hope to hear from you again real soon.
Hi, Monster Kids. Elijah Broke here. I'm the guy who operates the elevator to the pit of hell. I'm the last guy you see after you fudge up the Macabre Cast horror trivia. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. Did you ever ask yourself, how can I help Doc Mark? Well, if you listen to this on YouTube, like the video, and please hype the video. If you listen to it on Apple Podcast, give Doc Mark a 5-star review. These simple things will help win the battle of the algorithm. Your support is deeply appreciated.
And before Chicago Tina thinks I only watched her recommendation because she badgered me, she recently raved about Castle Rock Season 2 that she accidentally watched before Season 1. I myself never got past the 4th episode of Season 1. I just didn't care for Castle Rock. So, of course, I never watched Season 2. Well, being a fan of the film Misery, and Tina saying how good the prequel was about Annie Wilkes, and then Jack-O-Lantern catching the first episode and suggesting it has to be seen because it's that good. I binge watched it, and all I can say is wow. This should have been Castle Rock's first season. They completely dropped the ball. I was captivated. When I say that Lizzie Kaplan nailed it as young Annie Wilkes, that's an understatement. The walk, the talk. My only gripe was that they changed the timeline so the story could be more modern. Had they not done that, then this series would have flowed much smoother right into Rob Reiner's Misery. But I digress. The story takes us through Annie Wilkes' past with her parents, her dyslexia, and her developing mental illness. The story does a great job with parallel storylines, pointing out that bad people can have goodness within them, and vice versa. As you may or may not know, the series Castle Rock ties together many people, places, and things in different Stephen King novels. For instance, Annie Wilkes' prequel story ends up in the town of Salem's Lot, including some good old-fashioned satanic happenings going on in the old Marston house. Tim Robbins is absolutely superb as the guy running the town from behind the scenes. Although it's weird when a show based on Stephen King novels mentions Shawshank Prison a lot and has Andy Dufresne on the set, but he's playing someone else. I don't get it. But my guess is you aren't going to get Tim Robbins on board if he has to retread old territory. Chicago Tina nails it again. Castle Rock Season 2 is fantastic. And sadly, it's the last season.
Due to unforeseen circumstances, Metal Cuss Bucket Melody will not be appearing on this episode.
Do violent films cause real-world violence? Scientific consensus indicates no. It does not directly cause people to be violent. But desensitization to violence coupled with reduced empathy being glorified don't do any favors for an individual who already possesses behavioral or psychological issues. The American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry have done studies, and they show that children are more likely to imitate realistic, unpunished violence that they have been exposed to at home or at school than what is observed in film. Individuals with emotional or impulse control or behavioral disorders are more likely to be influenced by what they see on the silver screen. Extreme criminal violence stems from a combination of genetics, environment, and mental health, not the consumption of violent entertainment alone.
Goditi questo episodio de Cast Macabro.
Thank you, Maria Monstalia, for telling our Italian friends to enjoy this episode of Macabre Cast.
Shh, come on now. Everybody pipe down. It's time for the final thought. You know, when a guy who watches monster movies is all of a sudden going to talk like some kind of philosopher.
Life is short. Make every moment count. Tell someone you're sorry while you still can. Savor every sunset. Don't spend all your time watching horror films, even though I wish I could. Everyone gets one ride, and when it's over, it's over. So here's to one long, lasting ride. Beware the moon. Keep clear of the moors. But most of all, remember, be good to yourself. This is Dark Mark, signing off. See you soon, I hope. This is a Macabre Theater production. Subscribe us.